Gypsy Rose reposted a video of a girl crying, saying she understood why she killed her mom. And instead of correcting it, she amplified it. That's not advocacy. That's glorifying murder. That is what manipulation looks like in real time. You think it's emotionally honest, but it's image control. Gypsy didn't just repost a video. She endorsed a mindset, and that's a problem. And that mindset ends in people dying. She played the system to get out. Now she's playing the internet to stay relevant. And if we don't start calling it out, what is next? Somebody else's mom.
I asked my mother, can we please get rid of the feeding tube? I don't need it. And she said no. Can I please maybe get some physical therapy to help me walk a little bit better? And she just said no.
The wheelchair. Okay, I always knew that I could walk. However, my mom instructed me to stay in the...
So this one's throwing me for a loop too. In the first clip, Gypsy says she asked her mom for physical therapy, as if she really thought she needed the wheelchair. But in the second clip, Gypsy admits that she knew she could walk the whole time she was in the wheelchair. So this one just doesn't add up for me. What do you guys think?
Gypsy Rose's mother's ashes were not flushed down the toilet. Why do y'all believe this? Claudia, her sister, has her ashes. Her cremated remains at the post office. Her sister getting her urn. Her sister showing Dee Dee's urn. The other box Dee Dee's ashes can go in. A close-up of that box. Y'all stay believing her damn documentaries, but I've already showed y'all documentation about documentaries do not have to be true. And as a matter of fact, they are made to create bias. Look that up. They don't have to be factual. And 90% of them are based off whatever the producer feels is the truth. But this is how I know y'all have no idea what Gypsy is about, because y'all just repeat whatever has been spewed on her documentaries. Right after this was said, her grandfather was also accused of SAing her, just out the blue. But Gypsy claims in the past her grandfather was her best friend. They hung out together all the damn time. And what's crazy is he talks about in her documentary how she'd stop breathing in her sleep. How him and Dee Dee would have to go wake her up to get her to start breathing again, and so the machine would quit going off. So is that fake? Was Gypsy faking that? How was Dee Dee asleep making it happen? It's odd to listen to a murderer and don't do any kind of fact searching on your own. Just believing a murderer who planned her mother's murder for 4 years.
Gypsy Rose Blanchard just hit repost on a TikTok, and it's not just off-putting. It's genuinely unsettling. This isn't your typical internet controversy. It's the kind of move that stops you in your tracks and makes you ask, does she even understand what she's doing? Because what she shared wasn't a funny clip or a motivational video. It was a TikTok featuring a teenage girl in therapy, and the underlying message? It eerily echoes Gypsy's own past, the one that ended with her mother dead. This wasn't a subtle nod. It was a direct, uncomfortable reference that felt more like glorification than reflection. Let's talk about what makes this so dangerous. Her following is made up of millions, but it's not just random fans. A huge chunk of her audience is made up of young women, teenage girls, and moms who relate to her pain or trauma. Many of them are still healing themselves. They're anxious, vulnerable, and often dealing with tough family dynamics. So when they see Gypsy, a woman who went to prison for plotting her mom's murder, reposting something like this, it doesn't land as irony. It lands as validation. And validation from someone like Gypsy is a big deal to these followers. They see her as someone who lived through hell and survived. So when she co-signs a video romanticizing a teenager's trauma and hints at breaking ties with her mom in a dark way, it hits way too close to the real thing. We've seen the real-life consequences before.
Gypsy Rose just reposted a TikTok romanticizing her crime, and it features a teenage girl in therapy. This isn't just tone deaf or in bad taste. This is absolutely terrifying because her fan base mainly consists of young women, young moms, teen girls, many of them struggling with mental illness, trouble at home, trauma. Remember Carly Gregg, a teen a while back that unalived her mother after having a fight with her? Did GRB just co-sign on teenage girls fantasizing on deleting their own mothers?
Think about Carly Gregg, a teenager who, during a moment of chaos, made an irreversible decision and took her mother's life. That tragedy was not a storyline, it was a horrifying reality. And now, here we are again, watching someone with a massive platform make content that seems to mirror that kind of nightmare, but dressed up with soft lighting and background music. So the question becomes, is Gypsy indirectly giving these young girls permission to lean into those violent fantasies? Because that's what it feels like. The subtext of her repost says, "I understand. I've been there." But the danger is that these aren't just feelings. They're intrusive thoughts in impressionable minds. Minds that are still learning what's okay and what isn't. And her approval, even if unintentional, can act like a green light. And it doesn't help that the comments under the video are flooded with praise. People cheering her on. Most of them, teenage girls. The exact group that should be hearing boundaries, not bravery in this context. This isn't about cancel culture. It's about accountability and protecting people who don't yet know how to process this kind of content.
Because that's what that repost is giving. This isn't harmless either. GRB is some type of influencer to these young girls. By reposting it, she's validating this young woman's feelings, or worse, making it relatable. And whether she means to or not, her young fans take this as an approval. Their brains are still developing. They are still figuring out right from wrong. And this, it's dangerous. And according to the comments on that post, GRB has quite a bit of support. And where is this support coming from? Young women, teenage girls. If you agree with this, if this just enrages you, please share it, because we need to talk about it loudly.
Gypsy may think she's being open or relatable, but what she's actually doing is feeding into a dangerous narrative that can have real-world consequences. If this hits a nerve, that's good. It should. It's one of those moments where silence isn't an option. Share the video. Talk about it. Challenge it. Because if we don't call this out, the message to every vulnerable teen watching is that pain justifies violence, and it absolutely does not. And hey, if you're still with me after all that, thanks for sticking around. Don't forget to like the video, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and hang around till the end. I promise the tea may be bitter, but at least it's real.
Let's get one thing clear. Gypsy was 23 years old when she plotted her mother's murder. Her mom was never diagnosed with Munchausen by proxy, not by a doctor, not by a specialist, and not in any official capacity. She actually had a chromosome disorder, which she still currently has. She wasn't labeled as abusive in court. That label came from the media, and Gypsy ran with it. Actually, it came from her attorney, and Gypsy ran with it, and the media did too. She just gave 9 million people permission to romanticize killing their parents if they feel misunderstood or hurt. Let that sink in. This wasn't someone sharing trauma. It was somebody saying, yeah, I get it. I would have done it too. And Gypsy co-signed it like it was an inspirational quote. That is what manipulation looks like in real time. You think it's emotionally honest, but it's image control. Gypsy didn't just repost a video. She endorsed a mindset, and that's a problem. And that mindset ends in people dying. She played the system to get out. Now she's playing the internet to stay relevant. And if we don't start calling it out, what is next? Somebody else's mom.
And just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, Gypsy Rose went a step further. After sharing that unsettling TikTok romanticizing her own crime, she didn't stop there. She followed the teenager who made it. Yes, seriously, she followed the minor back. This wasn't a random social media slip-up or a poorly timed like. This was a conscious decision to engage directly with a teenager who created content that glamorized the murder of a mother, something Gypsy herself was convicted of planning. It takes the situation from disturbing to outright alarming. And it brings up a question we probably should have been asking from the beginning. Why is she even allowed to be on these platforms? One viewer, Eliza, made a great point in the comments. She said it's baffling that someone who used social media to plan a homicide is now casually scrolling, reposting, and following minors online without restriction. And she's not wrong. Gypsy met Nicholas Godejohn online. She walked him through the plan using messages. She even showed him where to find her mom's bedroom through a chilling online tour. The internet wasn't just a backdrop to her crime, it was the main tool she used. So why wasn't there any condition limiting her access to it when she got out? It's a fair question. Maybe it ties back to her involvement in that docuseries. Maybe she negotiated digital freedom in exchange for promotion.
So not only did Gypsy Rose Blanchard repost that troubling post romanticizing her crime, but she followed the minor back. Eliza writes, "This is so worrying, and I don't know why the authorities allow her to even be on social media after her release, since she organized it on social media." This is such a good comment, and a lot of people don't realize that she did plan this on social media.
Who knows? But for someone with that history, letting her roam free on social media seems like a massive oversight. And let's not forget how these platforms work. When someone with Gypsy's level of visibility engages with content, even passively, the algorithm goes to work. The moment she reposted that TikTok and followed that teen, it didn't just stay in her corner of the internet. It was pushed out to countless others, especially more teens. That means thousands of young girls, many of whom are emotionally fragile or dealing with trauma, were now exposed to a video that framed matricide as a poetic response to pain, and saw Gypsy Rose stamp it with her approval. That's not just bad optics, that's actively feeding the fire. And unfortunately, this isn't an isolated incident. Since her release, we've seen Gypsy make one concerning move after another. From leaking personal health info about her ex, to allegedly sabotaging job opportunities, to this most recent engagement with harmful content, there's a clear shift happening. At first, she seemed focused on rebuilding her life. But now, it's like we're watching her unravel in real time. And the timing is hard to ignore. The closer she gets to the end of her parole, the more her behavior seems to deteriorate. If this is how she's acting while under supervision, what happens when there's no one left to hold her accountable? Because right now, we're not just talking about a woman making bad PR decisions. We're looking at someone whose actions have very real consequences for young people watching her every move.
She found Nicholas Godejohn on social media. The walkthrough tour of her house, going over her mother's bed, making a downward motion, showing Nicholas where to go and exactly what to do on the internet as well. So yeah, social media and the internet. Why that wasn't made a special condition, I can only speculate because of the show and because part of her contract was promoting it online and social media. That was a repost because it was somebody in support of her, even though it was a child. And she was getting a lot of support in the comments because the girl was a teenager. So the algorithm will push it out to other teenagers, her fan base, aka her demographic. The closer GRB gets to her parole release date, the more spiraling and escalating she seems to get. And just imagine, if this is her on supervision, we are fucked.
This isn't just another chaotic internet saga. It's something that could cause actual harm if it goes unchecked. At this point, the conversation has to be bigger than just commentary. We need to question the systems around her, the people enabling this, and the silence from those who should know better. So, now I want to hear from you. Does this feel like a serious warning sign to you too? Let me know what you're thinking in the comments.
Do y'all remember the night that Gypsy Rose left in the middle of the night or late at night, went to a neighbor's house, asked for a ride to Mercy Hospital, the same place that she was getting her treatments at, to see her boyfriend, or then boyfriend, Dan? And she brought some things with her. Apparently, Dee Dee had reached out to Dan saying, "My daughter is under 18, you cannot date her." So she brings like some clothing, a 3-ring binder with multiple things in it proving her age, and 2 things from her mother's safe. Her mother's pain medication and her, I think, $1,000 that she had saved. One thing that's never added up for me was the inconsistency in whether or not she had a problem with that type thing. Maybe I'm wrong, but I've never really felt like she truly had a problem with that like she claims. People that were in prison with her said no, she didn't, and then she would say that she did. Like, why lie about that type of thing is what I'm saying. I'm thinking that she brought those things for Dan. And then when her mom shows up the next morning, so I believe it was a friend of Dan's, and said, "Give me my 2 things back," and she didn't make Gypsy leave with her. Gypsy went home on her own, like on her own free will. I saw a video recently where someone said the reason that she went home was because after she didn't have those 2 things, Dan and all his friends didn't want her there. Is that true? Is that why she's been saying that all this time? Like, I don't understand. What are your thoughts? Please hit that follow button if you like this type of content. I'm still trying to grow this account. This video was for entertainment purposes only. Nothing is factual. All is alleged and just my opinion.
Let's shift the focus for a second, not just on what Gypsy did, but what it means in the broader picture. Because reposting a video that sympathizes with her crime is one thing, but choosing that specific video in that specific tone from a clearly vulnerable teen, that's not an accident. That's calculated. This isn't just someone fumbling through post-prison freedom. It's someone very intentionally shaping how the world sees her. Instead of condemning violent thinking, Gypsy used her platform to lift up a message that basically says, "You're not wrong for understanding me, you're right." That's not reflection. That's reframing murder as a relatable moment of emotional clarity. What's so dangerous about this isn't just the message, it's the delivery. Gypsy is no longer just a former inmate trying to rebuild her life. She's an internet personality with a huge audience, one that's mostly made up of teens and young women who relate to her trauma story. But she's not offering tools for healing or growth. She's feeding them pain-wrapped content that makes extreme actions seem reasonable under the guise of empathy. And let's talk about the facts that keep getting lost in the sea of emotional storytelling. Gypsy wasn't a 15-year-old with no sense of consequence. She was 23. She had the mental capacity to know right from wrong, to make decisions, to plan. The way her story is now framed online, you'd think she was a helpless child acting out in desperation. That's the image she leans into, and it works, because people want to see a redemption arc. They want to see a survivor, and Gypsy knows exactly how to perform that role.
Maybe having her take accountability for it.
And stop bullying us or building our hopes.
You could bring a horse to water, as they say. She'll do it on, like I said, she will do it on her own time. Gypsy,
I hope people don't get hurt.
I don't think people
When there's people around her, and I'm trying to be respectful with this, Christy, but you're enabling her behaviors.
Yeah.
You haven't been paid at all for your time on the show?
We gave the money to Gypsy.
Why? I thought she couldn't make money off the shredder of... You guys would have...
We don't have to send a sample.
And the one biggest thing that I have with this is that she does not identify herself as a murderer when she was the one who put the weapon in Nick's hand.
Yes.
And I say that respectfully.
It's not that she doesn't want to. She knows. She knows what she did, but she don't want to have to get it thrown in her face every day.
Why is she on TV?
She knows what she did, but she can't take accountability for it, Christy. That makes no sense.
As for her mother, Dee Dee, the Munchausen by proxy diagnosis is often thrown around as if it were a confirmed medical fact. It wasn't. No medical professional ever officially gave that diagnosis. It was a defense argument, crafted for court and later picked up by the media because it made the story more palatable. Gypsy's public narrative depends on that label sticking, even though it's legally unproven. And the more she repeats it, the more people treat it like gospel. This is how the manipulation works. She uses a distorted version of her past to justify everything she does now. Every post, every comment, every subtle nod toward her old life. It's selective honesty. And it's working because her followers aren't fact-checking. They're relating. That's the real problem here. By reposting that video, Gypsy isn't just engaging in tasteless behavior. She's reinforcing a mindset that tells hurting people, "You're not alone if you've thought about violence." But she leaves out the consequences, the prison sentence, the irreversible loss, the trauma it caused others. Instead, it's a curated version of events that focuses on pain, not accountability.
She's never taken it to, I mean, she's taking a lot of accountability for everything she did.
She has not taken accountability when it comes to Nick. You cannot say that she has not taken
accountability. She has confided in me about a lot of things, and that's between her and I. And when she do it, when she's going to be ready to share it, she will. I'm not going to.
The best thing for Aurora and the better
thing, you just said the word she has to take accountability, and she has never. She has, but hold on, wait.
But I'm not talking about like the Nick thing. I'm talking about.
No, but Christy, this whole thing is because of Nick. She used and abused an autistic man. She needs to take accountability for it, and I promise you.
She doesn't need to take accountability.
Christy,
you gotta be kidding me. So let me get this straight. You made victims. You shouldn't have been released from prison until you took full accountability for your crime and understood the people that you harmed. Post-release, demonizing, villainizing, throwing shade, being hateful, reposting videos that say that you butchered your mom because it says you're hot in it. And I will never stop screaming that.
And if she can frame it just right, she keeps the sympathy rolling in, and the monetization opportunities too. This isn't a redemption arc, it's a marketing strategy. And that's what makes it even more dangerous, because when your trauma becomes your brand, you're no longer just sharing your truth, you're selling it. And when the price is influence over millions of impressionable minds, we have to ask, what is she really trying to sell? The longer this continues, the more the lines blur between storytelling and recruitment. And that should terrify all of us. This isn't about hating Gypsy Rose. It's about asking why someone with this much damage in her wake is being allowed to shape the minds of young, struggling people with no real accountability. We're not watching someone spiral. We're watching someone craft a spotlight. And she's using the darkest parts of her past to keep it lit.
is not someone who is remorseful. And to sit there and say that she doesn't have to, oh, well, the Nick thing, and skip over that. He's going to live the rest of his life in prison for her manipulating him and taking advantage of him on the internet. And she wants to paint him as a demon, a villain, to sit there and say she'll take accountability when she's ready. When she's ready should have been before she was released from prison. That is the point of sending her to prison. When your child gets in trouble and you give them a punishment to redirect behavior, what are they supposed to learn from it? Changed behavior. That's what the parole board is for, Christy. To make sure that they understand the weight of what they have done. So it's not when she's ready. And then you say she doesn't owe the public anything. You know what I mean? She's confided in only you about things, and that's all that matters. That's all great and well. I'm glad that she's confided in you. But when you are profiting, when you are making money, when you are selling a book of lies, when you are putting yourself in the public eye to win affection so that way you can make money on your story, then you better dang sure know that we expect her to take full accountability for her actions.
Now, let's talk about this latest twist, because apparently Gypsy Rose has decided that being controversial online isn't enough. She's now publicly leaning into the villain label, as if it's a quirky aesthetic instead of a reflection of very real, very serious actions. In a recent post, she casually stated, "I'll be the villain," like she's stepping into some scripted anti-hero role, but this isn't a streaming series. This is real life. And real lives were destroyed because of her choices. So trying to adopt this dark, misunderstood persona isn't just cringeworthy. It's irresponsible. Gypsy isn't being cast as the villain by society. She's choosing it, deliberately, and almost theatrically.
And that is what everybody is so upset about. I don't know how you don't get that.
And you said the son of Sam law doesn't apply. I think that was so funny that you brought that up. Almost like you know it should. There were some people in that live that definitely held your feet to the fire and asked you some questions and told you the truth. But you are just as much of a problem and a liar as Gypsy Rose Blanchard. You were telling a story about how Mia was 10 years old when Gypsy was telling her an inappropriate story about her boyfriend and confiding in her. And but, well, dadgum, I guess if they were that close at 18 years old and her being 10 or whatever age, 13, who freaking knows? I don't know the age gap between Mia and Gypsy. But I do know that if she was close enough to confide in her sister about boys, she had a chance to tell her sister what was going on in her life. But she didn't. The truth of the matter is, Gypsy knew what they were doing. She knew they were grifting, and abuse was not the reason why she unalived her own mother. You're not someone to be fawned over, Christy. You are just as much a piece of the puzzle. Just as much villainizing and putting down and demonizing Dee Dee every chance you get. You're an enabler, and you're part of the problem.
This isn't self-reflection or accountability. It's branding. And the message she's sending is clear. She's no longer interested in explaining herself. She's doubling down on the shock factor. That's not growth. That's an image pivot. She also claimed she's done proving herself, which honestly raises the question, what exactly has she been trying to prove? Because if it's remorse, clarity, or accountability, she's been sending mixed signals at best. Between the glam photo shoots, the TikToks, the interviews, and now these vague, ominous statements, it feels less like someone trying to heal and more like someone curating a persona. And the cherry on top? She paired the villain post with the Akon track, "Blame It On Me." That's not self-awareness. That's a soft launch for a sympathy campaign. It's a not-so-subtle play for pity, thinly veiled as empowerment. The music choice, the tone, the caption, it's the digital equivalent of a sigh followed by a "no one understands me."
So Gypsy posted this talking about I'll be the villain. Girl, what in the Disney Plus deleted scene is going on here? You're not the villain or the victim? Girl, you're the whole plot twist nobody asked for and main character in a cautionary tale. So she said she's done proving herself. That's funny, because no one asked for proof. We've got police reports, testimonies, and a murder conviction, and multiple TikToks showing your fake tears and selling trauma like it's a 2-for-1 at Bath & Body Works. She really posted this like we've been gaslighting her. Ma'am, you had your mom murdered. You have a Lifetime show, and you're rebranding like you're some Disney character with a makeup routine. This ain't healing. And the Akon song in the background, sorry, blame it on me. Baby, that's not accountability. That's PR with a side of passive-aggressive pity party.
But this isn't high school drama. This is a woman with a body count on her back and a very public platform. You can't commit a murder, do time, and then reemerge online trying to repackage it all as some misunderstood character arc, especially not when your posts consistently blur the line between emotional transparency and straight-up manipulation. And that's what this is. Manipulation dressed up as vulnerability. She's positioning herself as the misunderstood rebel, the outcast no one sees clearly. But here's the thing. We do see her clearly. We've seen the court documents, we've heard the recordings, we've followed the entire timeline. This isn't a case of being unfairly judged. This is someone who committed a brutal crime and is now trying to take control of the narrative, not to educate, but to reframe. And the timing couldn't be more suspect. That villain post didn't just come out of nowhere. It popped up just as Gypsy is approaching the end of her parole, when she'll no longer have to answer to anyone legally. If that doesn't raise alarms, it should. Because with every new post, she's pushing the limits a little further, seeing how far she can go, how much she can get away with, and who's still willing to back her. And let's not ignore the undercurrent here. That post wasn't just for the public.
Gypsy's giving gaslight, gatekeep, and grief tour all in one. I'll say it once, and I'll say it louder for the people in the back. You don't get to play misunderstood when there's a body involved. You can't quote every Pinterest post and act like you're not a criminal. We remember what you did, how you're treating it like a brand aesthetic. So yeah, maybe you're the villain, but you're also the writer, the casting director, the main one trying to flip the script. And unfortunately, we've all seen this movie.
It read like a message. Maybe for Ken, maybe for Ryan, maybe for someone else entirely. But it screamed of tension, of brewing chaos behind the scenes. Something isn't sitting right, and instead of addressing it privately, she's performing it publicly, which leaves us asking, what's next? When the guardrails are off, when the filters are gone, when no one's watching, what version of Gypsy Rose are we about to get? Because if this is how she's acting while under supervision, the unfiltered version might be even more chaotic. And if her idea of healing means embracing the villain label and using it to control the public's perception, then we're not watching someone find peace. We're watching someone prepare to rebrand.
Y'all, Christy threw some shade. First, she claimed that GRB made Ken sign an NDA. Ryan didn't even sign an NDA. Like, what kind of relationship requires a non-disclosure agreement? That's not romance. That's not trust and love. That is damage control currently and for the future. Then Christy dropped a bomb. She said that she believes Dee Dee did take care of Gypsy. This is after sticking to the story that Dee Dee was abusive, didn't take care of Gypsy. Dee Dee was an monster. She had MSBP, but it doesn't end there. So Christy also said that GRB showed Mia an inappropriate picture of Dan Glidewell, okay, GRB's boyfriend, the catalyst for all of this, I think. Truly. Showed Mia his Facebook. Is Christy really upset? Is she upset? Or is this Blanchard family theatrics? Who knows with them, right? I'm leaning to Christy being upset because those are some pretty huge things to drop. There's a difference from Christy hinting that GRB may be pregnant to literally calling her out on some pretty horrendous accusations and facts.
At this point, it's hard to ignore the pattern. Gypsy Rose Blanchard isn't just navigating life after prison, she's actively curating an identity, one post at a time, and it's not one rooted in accountability or growth. Instead of focusing on healing or using her platform to speak responsibly, she's leaning into shock value, emotional manipulation, and a dangerously glamorized version of her past. This isn't about dragging her or reliving the past. It's about recognizing how her behavior affects others, especially those who see themselves in her story. The internet isn't just watching, it's absorbing. And when the message is blurred and the lines between remorse and performance disappear, the consequences can get very real, very fast. So, if you've made it this far, thank you for taking the time to really think through all of this with me. These conversations matter. If you found this breakdown helpful or important, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's next. And while you're here, go ahead and click one of the videos on your screen. We've got more deep dives that are just as real, just as revealing, and just as necessary.